Hello again. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and today's class is Cloud Networking Introduction. So this is one of those cutting edge concepts that's actually kind of sort of been around for a really long time, and people are throwing out a lot of buzzwords that don't actually make a whole hell of a lot of sense when you actually start understanding the technology. So I figured, hey, why don't I do a class on cloud networking? Kind of like cloud computing. Everybody thinks they know what it is, and almost everybody is wrong. It's not that. It's something else. It's something else very, very cool, but it's something else. So when we're talking about cloud networking, there are two things that you have to understand, or there's two concepts that people are talking about. So the first concept with cloud networking is an infrastructure concept. So basically, when I talk about an infrastructure concept, what I mean is actually networking virtualized computers, networking a virtualized world. So get out of thinking about cloud computing for a moment, because when people start thinking about the clouds, they start thinking about all kinds of wacky stuff. Well, as we've talked about before in the cloud computing and virtualization classes, virtualization is a single component of cloud computing. So when we are talking about cloud networking, most of the time what we are talking about is networking for the virtualized environment. That is what we are discussing, that kind of infrastructure. So that's the first thing people can be talking about when they talk about cloud networking, is basically how do we network this virtualized infrastructure. The new thing that's coming out with cloud networking, the latest and greatest, the coolest, the sexiest, all of that, is actually a service that is now being provided by some companies that you can pay for and actually connect computers all over the world and have them think that they are on the same LAN. So basically, the cloud computing service is, think about an Uber VPN service. So with virtual private networking, the service that you would buy, you would connect from your computer to the service provider's VPN and then go out to the internet. Well, with cloud networking, what they do is, instead of forcing you just out to the internet, what they do is they become the hub for a VPN network. You connect with a VPN, your buddy connects with a VPN, your sister connects with a VPN, your employee connects with a VPN, and now, because you are connected through a VPN, you can all communicate with each other. Your computers can communicate with each other basically over the VPN. So when we're talking about cloud networking, we're talking about two different critters that, again, like I say, most of the time in technology computers, all these buzzwords get thrown out and everybody gets confused because everybody's saying the exact same words and meaning completely different things. So let's go over to my whiteboard so I can kind of start explaining to you these concepts so that it makes a little more sense. So, okay, so we're gonna go over, and this is my little digital whiteboard here. So let's go back to the beginning, right? And in the beginning, we had computers, and all these physical computers were out there. And all these physical computers, in order to communicate with each other, had to connect to switches and routers. So there was actual Cat5 cable running from these computers and servers and print servers and everything else to physical pieces of networking gear, and that allowed them to communicate with each other, right? That's the old days. That's like 2002, way back when, right? Then we started getting into the whole virtualized thing, right? What if we could virtualize servers? So instead of having one physical box have only one server, what if one physical box could have 10 servers or 5 servers or 20 servers, right? We were virtualizing. We were turning servers into instances within a virtualized world. So then we create our little cloud, and our cloud is actually built of servers, generally using a type 1 hypervisor, and on that we have instances of operating systems, right? So these operating systems are sitting in the cloud as instances. Well, realize in technology, even though we make jokes about things happening magically, the fact of the matter is technology is not magic. There's always an underlying something that's making things happen. So even though these computers have been virtualized, they still, when you first create them, don't have any way to communicate with each other, right? Because even though they're on the same box, there's no way for them to communicate. So originally, back in the old days, we have NAT in virtualization, or bridge connections. So what happened is these virtualized computers would use the network card of the physical box they were on and actually have to communicate out to physical routers and switches to have the communication between all of the different instances within the cloud. So basically communication would have to go out, and then it would have to go in and out and in and out and in. So if this instance wanted to talk to this instance, the communication would actually have to go out of the physical equipment and then go back into the physical equipment to make that happen over some kind of NAT or bridge connection using the network card of the physical piece of hardware. Now that's a real pain in the butt, so nobody really liked to do that. And so what they decided to do is they thought, what if we could virtualize networking equipment? Right? So we've virtualized servers, we've virtualized PCs. What if we can virtualize networking equipment? So now we have the cloud. We have all these instances within the cloud, and then all they do, right, a router or a switch is basically, it's an operating system within a piece of hardware. So they just virtualize that hardware. So now you have a virtual switch, and you can have a virtual router, and you can have a virtual firewall and all that. And now these computers within the cloud can connect to the virtual router and virtual switch and virtual all that, so that they can communicate with each other. So now all of these computers can communicate within the cloud, and they never have to go out. They can do it all internally. Now the question you're going to be asking is, you're going to be saying, well, Eli, why would you do that? I don't understand why you would create an internal virtualized network. Well, it's mainly for security, right? With routers and firewalls and switches, the more layered you can make a network, the more secure you can make it. So you can have, I don't know, let's say your Active Directory server here, and then you can have a router here, you can have your web server here. So when communication comes into the cloud, it's able to get to the web server, but the Active Directory server is behind a router. So you can kind of do all of that kind of fancy stuff within this cloud networking environment. It's very useful. Again, like you have to be thinking, when you want to really do security, when you really want to build infrastructure, you have to think that these devices, these servers, these instances, these are not things that you're going to put up one day and take down the next, right? When you're installing a server, that should probably have about a 5-year life expectancy. And when I say it has a 5-year life expectancy, it really pretty much is, you install it, you do all the configurations, and then like once a month or whatever, you come in and do updates, and that's about it. You don't touch with it, you don't mess with it, you don't do any of that kind of stuff. Well, one of the ways that you can make security much better on your network is by putting in networking equipment to segregate your network, so things like viruses can't very easily migrate through it. So if you want to really harden, if you really want to protect your database servers, one of the ways that you can do it is you can put them on a segment of the network that's only connected to the rest of the network with using a router with a firewall. And then within that firewall, you can say, I only want traffics on these ports coming from these specific web servers to be able to access the database servers. Because one of the problems in the real world is somebody downloads a virus, and then that virus can automatically propagate out because there's no firewalls, there's no segmentation, it can just go out and cause all kinds of havoc. Well, if you have lots of firewalls, if you have lots of routers, if you have lots of segmentation and you set it up properly, then it doesn't allow that to happen. So imagine like you have a building. So when people think about having buildings and people think about protecting buildings, they think about the lock on the front door. They think about how solid that front door is. They think about what kind of lock is on the front door, and that's all they think about. So if somebody is able to break through that front door, they gain access to everything. That's kind of like a virus or a hacker in the modern world. Well, what you really want to do if you do security properly is you want to have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of doors inside your facility. So what if they break through the front door, and then they go in, when they're about to go into the next room, they find out the next door is secure. So then they have to break through that door, and then they go in and they see all these offices, But every office has a really secure door. So they got to bash down those doors, right? At a certain point, even if the cops aren't called, they're just going to get tired of breaking down doors and they're going to go home because it's too hard. Versus, imagine if you have a building, you only have one secure door, they break down that one secure door, and then they have free roam through the entire building. They can just come, they can pick up this computer, they can pick up this TV, and they can pick up whatever they want. Well, that's what we're doing with this virtualized environment and this cloud networking is we're able to very easily make far more complicated network infrastructure to make everything more secure. So that is the initial idea of what cloud networking is basically within the virtualized environment. So you have the instances of servers, you have the instances of desktop computers, you have the instances of whatever operating systems are going on. And then what they have done is they have virtualized networking equipment. And so as far as the computers are concerned, they seem like routers, they seem like firewalls, they seem like switches. And so what you can do is you can create very complicated virtualized network infrastructure so that certain computers only talk to other computers on specific ports. And as with everything, once you start virtualizing that is a lot less expensive than actually buying the physical devices. You know, if you want to buy even the lowest end Cisco routers like $500. You know, if you want to buy 30 of those, it's going to be very expensive versus simply virtualizing, creating router appliances, which would be a lot less expensive. So that is the initial concept of what cloud networking is. It's virtualized networking equipment in order to connect computers and servers within a virtualized world. So let's go ahead a little forward to start talking about what service is being sold for people when they are talking about cloud networking. Let's go back over to the whiteboard so I can explain this. So basically, when we're talking about cloud networking now, when we're talking about the service, we have to go back a little bit to understand what everybody's talking about. So basically, the new services now are essentially based off of VPN, virtual private networking. So back in the day, what VPN was is you have a building, and in the building you have your LAN, right? And everybody that's connected on the LAN, the local area network, they can all share documents, and they can print to a shared printer, and they can get to the intranet, and they can do all of that stuff. And they're all happy campers, right? We are in the building, and we are special. The problem is what happens if somebody's outside the building and needs access to stuff on the LAN, but they're outside the building. You know, this is in Baltimore, right? And this guy's in San Fran. But he wants to print to a printer on the LAN, or he needs to be able to share documents or reach the email server. So what are we going to do? So back in the old days, that's when they created the idea of the VPN, the virtual private network. So you have your LAN, then you have what's called a VPN server on your LAN. You configure this, you configure your router, all of that. Then this guy, he's sitting down at his little laptop computer, which has a VPN client. He then connects to this VPN server, and once he's created the connection, it now appears to all computers as if he's on the local area network. So he can access shared files, he can access the email server, he can access the intranet, so forth and so forth. So that is the idea. Now the big thing though with VPN, and why VPN is still being used, and why the technology uses are growing larger and larger, is that this is a very, 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 very secure connection. Essentially, this connection is a double layer of encryption. So your data is encrypted, and then it's put in a tunnel of encryption, and it's very, 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 very secure. So essentially, VPN connections are very secure, and so when Bob here connects to the local area network, at his office, he doesn't have to worry about things called man-in-the-middle attacks. So somebody can't try to get into the middle of this data stream and grab any information because it has the double layer of encryption. So this is very important as people connect to their LANs using the VPN. If they are at a cyber cafe, if they are at a library, if they use any kind of open Wi-Fi connection, they want to be using a VPN to connect to the local area network, network because it is secure. So since that technology is secure, things have gone on. There's more and more road warriors, more and more people that go to their little cyber cafes and they want to be able to use their computer, and they want to be able to go to the internet, and they want to be able to log in and do banking and all of that kind of stuff. So they're sitting there at the cyber cafe. But the problem is if they connect to the internet using an open, unsecured connection, other people at the cafe or other people on that open connection can actually read the information that's being sent back and forth to the internet from your computer. So we had a class on subterfuge where this one little application, anything being sent in the clear, anything being sent unencrypted over a Wi-Fi network, they can grab your usernames, your passwords, and what website you're logging into. So if you sit down at the cyber cafe and you log into Facebook, they can grab your username and password. You grab them to go into Google, Twitter, same. If you start dealing with data with your bank account, they can grab all of that information, because if you just sit down at the cyber cafe and you connect to the open connection, that is not encrypted data. So basically anybody with the right technology, software, can read it. So what they came up with was VPN services, virtual private networking services. So what happened is you have these companies that offer VPN services, things like there's a site called Tunnel Bear. So you pay them like $5 or $10 a month. What happens then is your computer connects to their service over a VPN, a double encrypted VPN, right? Double encryption. And then from their secure servers, you then access the internet to go and do Facebook or Google or whatever else. If somebody on the open Wi-Fi network tries to read what you're doing, it won't be able to work, because again, you are using now double encryption. So the only time the data is not encrypted is when you're going out of the VPN service provider servers out to the internet. Now, if somebody was here, they could technically do something, but you're hoping that their servers and their internet connection are secure. So basically, this is the VPN service. So when we start talking about cloud networking, so it's important to understand this when we start talking about cloud networking and cloud networking as a service, because that's essentially what we are building on. We are building on the VPN services. So remember, originally, way back in the day, what VPN allowed you to do, virtual private network, is your computer out in the outside world could go back and connect to your LAN. But the idea there was you had a LAN. So you have 100 computers on your local area network, and you have 1 or 10 or 20 people out in the outside world that are going to be connecting. Then we came up with this whole VPN service so that you can access the internet more securely. Then the question has come up is the way people are doing business is changing dramatically. A lot of businesses, a lot of companies now, a lot of times don't actually even have office space. They may have 10 employees, they may have 20 employees, basically all working from home or all working from the Starbucks. So the question is what happens when there no longer is a LAN at all? Right? We come at it from the idea that when you work for a company, the company has an office, the company has servers, the company has an internet connection, and you would be connecting to that. Well, in the modern world, it may not be so. You may have a rather decent-sized company that actually doesn't have offices, and the employees, again, work from wherever they are. But the thing is, the basic need to be able to share data, the basic need to be able to share files and do printing and all of that kind of stuff maybe has not gone away, but the central office has. So that is where the modern cloud networking comes in. So basically you have these services and in the cloud, and they have their servers, and what happens is all these people that are part of your company, they connect to the service with the VPN. So basically they're VPNing into the service. The service then knows you guys are all part of the same account, so it will then route the data between you guys. So if you have a shared folder on computer 1 and computer 5 wants to access it, computer 5 connects to the service, computer 1 connects to the service, and then the service would then make it seem as if computer 1 and computer 5 are on the same network. So everybody's computers, 4, 3, 2, they all connect to this service using a VPN type protocol. Then the service allows them to see each other. So the link to the service is secure, and then you're able to share data that way. So this is what a lot of times people are talking about now when they're talking about cloud networking. Basically, think of it as like hosted VPN service when the LAN doesn't exist, right? So most of the VPN services that have been out there now, all it's doing is providing you a secure way to connect to the internet. This is providing you a secure way to connect to other computers, again, from the same company, so that you can all share files and share whatever it is that you want to do. So that's the basic idea of what's going on. So there's a lot of different companies out there doing that kind of stuff right now. This is one that I was told about. We're probably going to do a review and play around with it later. But you've got this Pertino, and essentially, again, the concept is VPN. What specific technology they use, I'm not quite sure. But that is what they do. So they all the different client computers connect into their cloud network engine, and then they can all see each other and they can all interact with each other. So you can have a computer in France, a computer in Great Britain, a computer in San Francisco, and a computer in Beijing. And as far as the computers are concerned, they will be on the exact same LAN with a really, really, really kind of piss poor slow connection. But it will seem to be as if they're on the same LAN. How you will use that, why you will use that, again, as I talk about, technology, it's as much an art as it is a science. So you have to figure that out. You have to figure out if that is a good solution for you, and then if it is, you can go for it. So again, the big thing though, when we're talking about cloud networking, we're talking about multiple different things. Everybody's using the exact same word to talk about different things, and that therefore it can make everything really, really, really confusing for everybody involved. So cloud networking, the essential idea of cloud networking, really, 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 truly, is virtualizing network equipment. So as I've talked about before, we have virtualized servers, we have virtualized PCs. The core concept of cloud networking is that we virtualize the networking equipment, the routers, the switches, the firewalls, all of that kind of stuff, and we make them, instead of having a physical router, we now have an instance of a router. Instead of a physical switch, we have an instance of a switch. Instead of having a physical firewall, we have an instance of a firewall. Again, that allows us to make really, 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 really gorgeous, beautiful art. Like if you use cloud networking properly, you can do some absolutely amazing things that there's no way in hell you would have a budget for normally. But it gets a little complicated. You got to make sure you know what you're doing. Again, that's really what we're talking about with cloud networking. There's also this cloud networking services. Essentially, basically what it is it's a VPN where you take out the local area network. So again, in the past, the VPN allowed you to connect to the LAN. So now we just take out the LAN entirely and have everybody connecting together with a VPN. Again, pretty cool, pretty nifty, pretty neat, whether it's something that you specifically need. But that's the idea of what's going on. So, as you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy. This was Cloud Networking Introduction. As always, I enjoyed teaching this class, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.